You've spent the last 4 years working as a mechanic at a small auto shop on the edge of Phoenix. Brakes, oil changes, engines making sounds nobody else can figure out. It's steady work, but it never quite gets you ahead. Just enough to stay even. Tonight, the shop closes early. A transformer blew 2 streets over, and half the block loses power. You lock up and walk next door to the only place still running. A small convenience store lit up by a backup generator, humming loud enough to hear from the sidewalk. The lottery numbers are playing on a small TV mounted near the register. Nobody's watching it. The owner, a guy named Mike who's run this store since before you could drive, is restocking cigarettes behind the counter, not paying attention to anything but his own inventory list. You remember the ticket in your jacket pocket. You bought it last week on a whim, after a customer joked about it while you had your head under his hood. You'd completely forgotten about it until right now, standing here with nothing else to do while you wait for your own street to light back up. You pull it out and hold it next to the screen. Instead of checking one number at a time, you read the whole line out loud under your breath. Fast, the same way you'd read a part number off an engine block. All 6 numbers, one breath. Then you stop, because every number you just said out loud matches the screen behind the register. You don't check again. You don't need to. Your brain already ran the comparison before your mouth even finished the sentence. Mike glances over, still holding a carton of Marlboros. "You good, man?" he asks, not really paying attention. You nod, because right now your voice isn't something you trust. You walk out into a street with no working lights, holding a small piece of paper that just turned an ordinary power outage into the exact moment your entire life quietly split into before and after. You don't call anyone. Here's the strange part. It isn't fear stopping you. It's math. Cold, fast math, running in the back of your head before you've even sat down in your truck. The second you say this number out loud to one person, you lose control of who hears it next. And the person after that. So instead of calling your brother or your mom or anyone who has ever asked you for help with anything, you get in your truck and drive home in the dark, past houses with no porch lights on, thinking about how strange it is that your whole neighborhood just lost power at the exact moment your own life quietly turned into something none of them will ever know about. You pull into your driveway. Your porch light is out too, same as everyone else's. For the first time in your life, that feels like the only thing that still makes sense. Your street stays dark for another 20 minutes before the lights finally flicker back on, one house at a time, like the whole block is waking up together. You sit in your truck in the driveway for a minute before going inside, just watching your own porch light blink on last. Your phone buzzes on the passenger seat. It's the family group chat, the one with your mom, your brother Jake, and your sister Amanda, the one that's been active almost every single day for the past 6 years. Tonight it's just Amanda sending a photo of a cake she's testing for her weekend bake sale. The one she runs out of her kitchen to save up for her own small bakery someday. Jake replies with 3 fire emojis. Your mom sends a heart. You almost type something back. Instead, you just sit there staring at the screen, the ticket still folded in your jacket pocket like it weighs more than the truck itself. Inside, your apartment is exactly the way you left it this morning. Same dish in the sink. Same bill on the counter from the shop's insurance renewal. The one you've been putting off opening because you already know the number inside isn't going to be good news. You open the fridge, grab a soda, and sit down at your kitchen table without turning on the TV. You think about your mom, still working the same job at the school cafeteria she's had for 11 years, 3 years short of the pension she talks about like it's a finish line she can already see. You think about Jake, who just moved into a smaller apartment last month after his roommate situation fell apart, and hasn't said much about it beyond a joke or 2 in the group chat. You think about Amanda, standing in her kitchen right now, icing a cake at 10 at night, doing math in her head about how many she needs to sell before she can afford her own oven that actually holds temperature right. None of them know what's folded in your jacket pocket. And for a second, sitting there in your quiet kitchen, you let yourself imagine it. Telling them tonight. Calling your mom first, Hearing her go quiet the way she does when she doesn't believe something yet. Watching Amanda's face when you tell her she never has to test another recipe in a kitchen that isn't hers. It would be so easy. One phone call, and everything changes for all of you at once. But you also know your family. You know Jake would want to tell people before you've even figured out what to do with it. You know your mom would want to call your aunt, and your aunt would tell her book club. And by Sunday, half the neighborhood would know before you've even opened a bank account for it. You think about the ticket again, still folded, still sitting an arm's length away from you on the table, now instead of in your pocket. You don't touch it. You just sit there, in a kitchen that looks exactly like it did yesterday, next to a piece of paper that could change everything for every person in that group chat, and you make the first real decision of this entire night. Not tonight. Not yet. Not until you understand what telling them turns into. You open the group chat one more time, type, "That cake looks amazing" to Amanda, hit send, and put your phone face down on the table. 3 days pass before you make the call. You spend those 3 days working like nothing happened, replacing a water pump on a Camry, rotating tires on a minivan, nodding along when a customer complains about gas prices, all while a folded ticket sits in a small fireproof lockbox you bought at a hardware store on your lunch break and told the cashier was for some paperwork. The attorney's office is on the 4th floor of a building downtown, the kind of place with a name on the door you've driven past 100 times without ever thinking you'd walk inside. Her name is Patricia Kowalski, and the receptionist doesn't ask why you're there, which tells you people like you walk through that door more often than you'd think. Patricia shakes your hand once, sits you down across a desk with nothing on it but a legal pad and a pen, and gets straight to business. "First thing," she says, "don't sign the back of that ticket." You look down at it, sitting in a plain envelope on your lap, and realize you'd already thought about signing it the night before, just to make it feel real. Signing it makes it yours, publicly and permanently, she explains. The second somebody photographs that ticket, your name is attached to it forever. She slides a claim form across the desk instead, and near the bottom, small enough you'd have missed it scanning quickly, there's a checkbox. Prize winner elects to remain anonymous. Arizona allows it. She tells you for prizes over a certain threshold, which this clears without any question. But the anonymity only holds if you take the lump sum instead of the annuity. Annuity payments release your name after a set period no matter what. Lump sum and anonymity, or nothing. You ask what the lump sum actually comes to. She turns her laptop around. The number on the store's sign had said $600 million. The number on her screen, next to cash value, reads $312 million. Your stomach does something complicated, watching over half the number disappear before you've spent a single dollar of it. That's before taxes, she adds, in the same calm tone a doctor uses for news that's serious but survivable. She explains what happens next. A trust gets created this week, with a name that isn't yours. Something forgettable. You sit there for a second, thinking, and land on Maple Ridge Holdings, after the street your childhood house was on before your family moved when you were 9. The trust claims the prize. The trust's name goes on any public record, if anyone ever bothers to look. Yours doesn't. Who else knows? She asks, and it's clearly not small talk. She needs the real number. You think about it honestly. Nobody. Not your mom, not Jake, not Amanda, not one single person in that group chat that's been running for 6 years straight. No one, you tell her. She writes it down like it's a variable in an equation she's already solved 100 times before. One where every extra name becomes a new way for this to go wrong. She asks if you understand what you're actually agreeing to. Not the paperwork. The shape of the next several years. No reveal to your family. No phone call that changes everything overnight. Just a signature, a trust, and a life that looks from the outside exactly like it did last week. You sign where she points. The pen feels heavier than it should for something this small. Walking out of that building, you're not a lottery winner in any way the world, or your own family, can see. You're just a guy in a work shirt, holding a folder instead of a check, heading back to finish a brake job before your next appointment shows up. 2 weeks after signing the paperwork, you're sitting in your truck during your lunch break, parked in the same spot behind the shop where you always eat, a sandwich half unwrapped on the dashboard, when your phone buzzes with an email from Patricia's office. Subject line, trust account funded. You almost don't open it right there. You almost wait until you're home, alone, somewhere private. But your thumb moves before you decide anything, and the banking app loads on its own, already logged in from the last time you checked it out of habit. The number takes a second to load. Then it's there. $187,432,916. You don't move. Through your windshield, you watch one of the guys from the shop, Danny, walk past carrying a bag from the taco place down the street, laughing at something on his phone. He doesn't glance at you twice. There's nothing to see. Just a mechanic sitting in his truck on lunch, staring at his phone, same as anyone checking a score or a text. He has no way of knowing that number just replaced every version of your future you'd quietly stopped believing in. It's not $312 million. Patricia had warned you about that in her office. Your new accountant, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Rebecca Lynn, who Patricia brought onto the file the same week, had walked you through exactly why the IRS takes 24% off the top automatically, the moment the trust claims the prize. No negotiating. No waiting. Just gone before the money is even technically yours to touch. On $312 million, that's a little over $74 million, vanished into federal withholding before you've bought a single thing. But Rebecca had also told you, in the same steady voice she probably uses for worse news to worse people, that 24% isn't the real number. It's a deposit. A win this size pushes you straight into the top federal bracket, 37%, and the rest comes due whenever you file. She'd done the math out loud in her office, tapping a calculator like it was nothing. $312 million at 37% comes out to just over $115 million owed to the federal government. Full stop, no matter how you slice the timeline. Which means the number sitting in front of you right now still isn't final. It's a placeholder. The real number, after everything the IRS is owed, lands closer to $187 million. There's a small mercy buried in it, and Rebecca had made sure you understood it as one. Arizona's state income tax on lottery winnings is a flat rate, nowhere close to what some other states charge. If you'd bought that same ticket 2 states over, in California, you'd be watching another 10% disappear on top of the federal hit. Instead, what's left after the federal cut is mostly yours to keep. You sit with that number a long moment. $187 million, sitting quietly in an account attached to a trust named after a street you haven't lived on in over 20 years. It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like surviving something with your bank balance still intact. Your lunch break ends in 4 minutes. You lock the phone, wrap the rest of your sandwich back up even though you've lost your appetite for it, and walk back into the shop like nothing happened. Because as far as Danny or anyone else on that floor knows, nothing did. You spend the rest of the afternoon replacing a serpentine belt on an old Civic, doing arithmetic nobody around you can see. Working out what a person is supposed to do with $187 million when they can't tell a single person they work with that it exists. The first thing you buy isn't for you. You'd expected the opposite. You'd pictured yourself walking into a dealership and driving out in something that turns heads. Instead, 3 weeks after the trust gets funded, you're sitting in Rebecca's office again, asking a question you hadn't planned on asking out loud. Is there a way to help my sister without her knowing it's me? Rebecca doesn't blink. She explains it like she's done this before, because she has. A donor-advised fund, set up under the trust, can quietly cover the cost of commercial kitchen equipment through a small business grant program that already exists for people exactly like Amanda. Nothing traces back to you. Nothing traces back to the trust by name either, once it passes through the grant committee. 2 months later, Amanda calls the family group chat practically shouting. She got approved for a program she barely remembers applying to months ago, some local grant for new food businesses. And it's covering almost the entire cost of the oven and prep station she's been saving toward for 2 years. You type "That's amazing" into the chat along with everyone else. Jake sends a string of celebration emojis. Your mom calls her directly to cry happy tears over the phone, the way she does. You sit at your kitchen table, phone in hand, and feel something you didn't expect. Not pride exactly. Something closer to relief, mixed with a strange kind of loneliness, being the only person in that conversation who knows the real reason any of it happened. The truck comes next, and it's the opposite kind of purchase. Registered under an LLC that has your trust as its only member. Nothing with your actual name on any paperwork that a curious neighbor or coworker could ever stumble onto. A newer model than your old one, but not flashy enough that Danny or anyone else at the shop asks a single question beyond "Finally treated yourself, huh?" You tell him you got a good deal on a trade-in. It's technically not even a lie. It's just not the whole truth. The bigger purchase, the one that actually matters, happens on a laptop at your kitchen table on a Tuesday night, long after everyone else in your life has gone to bed. Rebecca walks you through it over a video call earlier that week, same steady voice she uses for everything. A large chunk of the $187 million goes into a low-cost index fund. The same boring, unglamorous thing every actual financial advisor tells every actual person to buy, and almost nobody ever does. You stare at the confirmation screen for a long moment. There's no excitement to it. No new car smell, no salesperson congratulating you. Just a number moving quietly from one account into 500 companies you'll never think about individually again, growing or shrinking in ways that have nothing to do with you checking on it every day. It's the least glamorous thing you've done with any of this money. And somehow, it's the only piece that doesn't need an explanation. If your mom ever saw a version of that statement, she'd assume it was just careful saving. The kind of thing she always told you and Jake and Amanda to do growing up, back when saving felt like something within reach. Everything else now has a story attached to it. A vague explanation here, a half-true excuse there. That one purchase is the only thing in your entire life right now that doesn't require you to lie about anything at all. And it's that gap between the things you have to explain and the one thing you don't that's starting to feel less like a plan and more like the edge of something you haven't quite named yet. Your mom's birthday falls on a Saturday in October, and like every year, the whole family ends up at her house, Jake bringing the folding chairs from his apartment, Amanda showing up with a cake she insisted on making even though nobody asked her to work on her day off. You almost don't bring your laptop. You almost leave it in the truck like you always do. But you're expecting an email from Rebecca about a wire transfer timing issue. Something small, something you want to catch before Monday, so you bring it in and set it on the side table in the living room, planning to check it once, quietly, and forget about it for the rest of the day. You forget to close the tab. 2 hours later, your mom is in the kitchen lighting candles, Jake's outside grilling, and you're refilling a drink when you hear Amanda's voice from the living room, quieter than usual. "Hey, is this yours?" You walk back in and your stomach drops before you even see the screen. Your laptop is open on the coffee table where you left it, and Amanda is standing over it, not snooping, just glancing at it the way anyone glances at an open screen in a room they're sitting in. On it, an email from Rebecca, subject line clearly visible, Maple Ridge Holdings, Q3 distribution summary. Underneath it, a number. Not the full one. Just a line item, a routine transfer between accounts. Still, it's 7 figures, sitting there in plain black text on a white background, in your mother's living room, 3 feet from where your family is about to sing happy birthday. What is this? Amanda asks again, and this time it's not really a question. It's the sound of someone doing math she doesn't want the answer to. You close the laptop slower than you mean to, like closing it fast would somehow make this worse. It's for work. Some client stuff. You say, and you hear how thin it sounds the second it leaves your mouth. Amanda doesn't say anything for a moment. She just looks at you the way she used to when you two were kids, and you'd tell her a lie so obvious she wasn't even mad, just disappointed you thought it would work. That's not work stuff, she says quietly. I've seen your work stuff. You fix cars. You don't have an answer ready. Not tonight, not for this, not with your mom's birthday candles still burning in the next room and Jake's laugh carrying in from the backyard. Can we talk about this later? Not tonight, you say, and it comes out more like a plea than you intended. She studies your face for a long second, the way someone studies a door they're deciding whether to open. Then she nods once slow. Later, she says. But you're telling me. Not some version of it. The real thing. You spend the rest of the party smiling in photos, singing off-key with everyone else, hugging your mom and telling her you love her, all while Amanda watches you from across the room every few minutes, not saying anything else, just waiting. Driving home that night, you understand something you hadn't let yourself think about until now. The secret held for months. But something quieter, something between you and the one sister who's always been able to read you, didn't hold nearly as well. And pulling into your driveway, that whatever later turns into, it's coming faster than you're ready for. 6 months after your mom's birthday party, you're standing in a house that isn't finished yet, out past the edge of town where the desert opens up and the nearest neighbor is a half-mile away. The lot cost $2.8 million before you took it off the listing. An LLC bought it, not you. The paperwork routed through Rebecca's office the same way everything else has been for the better part of a year. Amanda knows now. Not everyone else, not yet, but Amanda does. That conversation happened 3 days after the birthday party, at her apartment, over coffee that went cold while you talked for 2 hours straight. She didn't yell. She just asked questions, one after another, the way she does with everything, until she understood the full shape of it. The number. The trust. The reason you didn't say anything for as long as you did. She didn't forgive it right away. She told you flatly that finding out from a laptop screen felt worse than finding out the truth ever could have. But she also understood, eventually, why you were scared. She's the one who suggested the bakery grant idea to you months earlier without even knowing it. The one who taught you, growing up, that the safest way to help somebody is often the quiet way. She's the only one who helps you decide what happens next. Jake still doesn't know. Your mom still doesn't know. You still show up to family dinners in the same truck, still talk about gas prices with Danny at the shop, still open your bank app on breaks and see numbers that don't match the life anyone around you thinks you're living. The money itself is doing exactly what Rebecca said it would. The index fund keeps growing quietly in the background, unaffected by whether you check it or not. A second, smaller piece went into a handful of local rental properties near the shop, boring and steady, the kind of asset that doesn't make headlines and doesn't need explaining at family dinners. And there's a third piece, one you asked Rebecca about specifically. A small fund, sitting under the trust, quietly covering tuition for 2 students a year at the community college near your old neighborhood. Kids who remind you a little of yourself at 19, unsure if college was even something people like you were supposed to try for. None of it has your name on it. None of it ever will, unless someday you decide it should. What you've built is real. The trust holds it. The properties generate it. The fund grows it quietly, month after month, without needing you to do anything at all. What it costs is something no spreadsheet tracks. It's watching your mom talk about her retirement plans at dinner and saying nothing, because saying something means saying everything. It's Jake joking about wanting to win the lottery someday, not knowing he's sitting across the table from someone who already did. You stand in the unfinished kitchen of a house nobody in your family has seen yet, and you understand something Patricia told you back in that office over a year ago, back when this was still just paperwork and a checkbox. The fortune was never going to be the hard part. The hard part is smaller than that, and it doesn't have a number attached to it. It's the exact moment, still somewhere ahead of you, when your mom asks a simple question at dinner, and you'll have to decide one more time whether the truth is finally worth what it costs to say out loud. Amanda still texts the family group chat every day, same as always. Nobody else in that chat knows what she knows now. You tell yourself there's time. There's always a next conversation waiting, closer than you think.